Wes Watson would have you believe he went from having millions through illicit means to being a feared and respected inmate, to reattaining his freedom and his wealth, this time by inspiring and motivating others to become their best self.
Because he looks at his family and he says, I won't let you down, I don't care, I'd rather die. He doesn't just say it, he gets up every day and he lives it.
That's certainly a more poetic profile than a bald, roided, woman-beating manlet with a micro who needs to scam people to make a living.
But people need to understand how much pain I've gone through.
That's a bag of trash, dude. You got 10-inch arms and dude, I'll smack your fat.
Only one of those is true, and today we'll find out which. Wesley Thomas Watson was born in 1983 in San Diego, California. But besides that, very little is known about his early life outside of what he says about it. He describes his parents as great role models for always staying together, and his father in particular is described as being a provider with a great work ethic. Despite this, Wes claims he always felt his dad didn't make enough money, which made him crave to achieve what his dad failed to, making as much money as possible by any means necessary.
I grew up lower middle class. We always had problems with bills. We were never super poor or nothing, but we just had problems making it every month. So like my goal was to not hear about money problems, so I started hustling.
I should note that this is what Wes claims, but as we'll find out, he can be quite delusional when the topic of money comes up. If this was indeed the case, this is the earliest instance of Wes's lifelong pattern of judging people exclusively on how much money they make, then immediately getting in trouble for it. Supposedly, because of his family's financial troubles, he began hustling when he was just 11 years old. And by hustling, I mean the criminal kind.
How did you make money when you were 12 years old?
Oh, selling.
At 12 years old?
Oh, yeah, always. I remember I was in the back of a car going to like Mardi Gras in downtown San Diego, and I'm like 13, and I got like a bunch of pre-bagged sacks on me, like a drop sack, like a bag full of like 20 grams of.
This is quite unusual since entry-level pushers, especially preteen ones, wouldn't be trusted to handle that much volume. It's hard not to be skeptical from the get-go when Wes is describing himself as the middle school El Chapo. What makes it even more dubious is that despite how many times he's disavowed his past lifestyle, he always sounds proud of what he used to do, borderline bragging about how much he was moving, the money he was making, or the luxury cars and properties he supposedly owned. Emphasis on supposedly. A much more believable version of his story is that Wes, a snowboarding teenager, was a pothead who didn't want to pay for his habit anymore, so he started selling it.
By the time I was 14 or 15, I was like, I need to get this for free. So obviously the natural progression was to start slanging. So then I get myself like a quarter ounce. I still remember it till this day. I had a little like clear box with each gram in it. I thought I was doing big things.
This version of the story, which he stuck to back when his content wasn't just him screaming at the top of his lungs, is a lot more realistic and actually has some evidence to back it up, since he does appear in some snowboarding video montages. Obviously, all of this is highly contradictory to his tall tales about being the 11-year-old Pablo Escobar, but you might as well get used to contradictions, as there are a whole lot more ahead of us. Part of what also points to the fact that Wes wasn't a big-time dealer like he claims is that, by his own admission, he was caught multiple times with substances, but in amounts so small that they never got him in serious trouble with the law. What did get him the sizable prison sentence that he built his entire career as an influencer off of was an incident that took place in late 2009. A man by the name of Ruben Carvajal owed about $5,000 to his plug, Noah Bloom, who had fronted him, meaning Ruben was supposedly to resell the product he bought to pay him back. Noah also owed money to his supplier, Jeffrey. So, to settle it all in one fell swoop, Ruben agreed to a deal where he'd sell them more high-quality ZA for cheap. However, when the three men met to negotiate, Jeffrey brought someone else to the sit-down, none other than Wes Watson. According to court statements, Noah had no idea what was about to happen and continued to negotiate the terms of their deal. Meanwhile, Ruben had brought a pound with him to prove that he had the supply to pay them back, although it didn't seem to be high quality like he had promised. All of a sudden, Wes butted in and asked if there was more of it. When Ruben replied, saying he'd left the rest of his supply in Los Angeles, Wes immediately attacked him. With the help of Jeffrey, Wes beat Ruben unconscious, stole the pound he'd brought with him, and proceeded to burglarize his house. This is a far cry from the level 99 mafia boss he painted himself to be, as not only is Wes clearly acting as Jeffrey's enforcer here, but Jeffrey himself was so low on the ladder that he also had to get his hands dirty. While there were some divergences in their testimonies, everyone involved in the situation had one thing in common. They testified and named Wes as the person who initiated the assault. This meant that not only was he a low-level high-level enforcer, but he might have actually been invited to take the fall when things went sour. Adding to this narrative is the fact that Wes himself admits to being looped out of the game due to being heavily addicted to speed and alcohol at this point, meaning he was the perfect mark for it. In his defense, Wes attempted to provide an alibi, claiming he was having dinner with a certain Mr. and Mrs. Miller, with whom he was living with at the time. This alibi was promptly rejected, as the picture he provided as evidence of this showed him with hair, when at the time of the incident he had shaved his head. Eventually, the Miller couple was contacted, and though it seems they made an attempt to support his alibi, they reported having gone to bed around 8 p.m., meaning they couldn't have known if Wes went somewhere afterwards. Though it's possible the whole living with the Miller couple thing was just something his defense came up with to try and alibi him out of the situation. Wes has a history of saying he owned multiple properties and was regularly going to clubs during the time this stuff took place. Why would he have to lie and say he was living out of some random couple's place? And additionally, are they really a random couple? Because he's on the record a bunch talking about living with his grandparents, and it's possible their last names aren't Watson if we're talking about his maternal grandparents. Of course, I'm just speculating here, but it does strike me as odd that he does not seem to have been living with these people during the time the incident went down. According to him, it took 8 months for law enforcement to catch him, and once again, he contradicts himself because 8 months later, he had already been convicted. I'll concede this may just be him misremembering, but in another video where he talks about how his arrest went down, more strange details emerge. For one, he prefaces the story by saying he was living at his girlfriend's house at that point in time, not his own. It's odd how this guy who has multiple houses is never at one of his own places. Eventually, YouTuber Jesse on Fire, whose wife, Gabrielle, knew Wes's girlfriend from this time period, gave direct context for this.
He lived with Gabrielle's friend prior to going to jail. I think it was maybe 18 months to 2 years before he went to jail. So clearly, well after he said he was driving Lamborghini doors and making 80 grand every 10 days, okay? He didn't have money for rent. He did not pay for bills. He lived with her, and he lived with her 2 other friends that lived there before him, and then he had to move in with his girl because he didn't have money. And the 2 other girls hated him so much that they moved out. They're like, I didn't sign up to live with your dude who's totally crazy and is not contributing to bills, and so they left.
Besides that, Wes admitted to still being addicted at the time of his arrest, which he euphemizes as being on a sick one and staying up for several days. As for the actual arrest, which supposedly happened right as he left the gym, he claims that a U.S. Marshal with an AR trained on him suddenly approached him, which I'm safely assuming is more embellishment. Once he realized what was happening, Wes recalls thinking that this was something related to a probation violation, but based on the available court documents about this case, none of his charges had anything to do with probation. Beyond these questionable pieces of information, we also have the matter of how much time he actually spent in prison. While he constantly channels Phil Leotardo and takes every opportunity to brag about having done 10 years in the can, it's a matter of public record that he was sentenced to 9 years, not 10. But maybe he meant 10 years if you include the time he spent in jail, which wouldn't be included in his formal prison sentence. And maybe there's a little rounding up involved. Well, even factoring that in, his own Facebook page reveals that by June 2019, he was already free and working with multiple clients as a fitness coach and personal trainer. Now, I'm no mathematician, but I think mid-2010 to mid-2019 makes for 9 years, and that's being as generous as possible. In his video with his mom, they both talk about it taking 1.5 years to 2 years until he had set up his business, and clearly by mid-2019 he had set it up, which would place his release at early 2018 at the latest. In his video about his paperwork, a topic I'll touch back on later, he shows his file, and although I'm thankfully not familiar with this kind of documentation, it does look a lot like right at the top of his file you can see the words type A release date, and underneath it a date for July 2018. If that date represents when he was slated to be released, and assuming he got arrested somewhere between November 2009 when he committed the assault and July 2010 when he was convicted, this means that even if you count potential jail time along with his prison sentence, he was locked up for 8 years at the absolute most. Now, the point of investigating this detail isn't as if him having done 8 years is somehow insignificant compared to him doing 10 years, but it is worth considering that the very foundation of his online identity may rest on lies and deception since the very moment he began posting. But to make a long story short, he was arrested and stayed inside for the better part of a decade, during which he struggled for years to stop abusing and selling substances. When he finally managed to get those issues under control, he claims he began devoting himself to fitness almost obsessively, as a way to control the very little he still had power over while in prison. Besides his substance abuse, there was one major problem that Wes knew he had to get a grip on: his gooning addiction. It's worse for your health than any substance you can think of, but fortunately, we at Turkey Tom Enterprises have come up with a surefire solution: the Stop Gooning Hat.
The Stop Gooning Hat is back on Turkey
turkeytom.shop, the latest and greatest in anti-gooning technology. This hat will prevent you, your ex-wife, your parents, your children, and all of your friends from walking down, perhaps even gooning down a very, very dark path. Thanks to its impactful design. I recently started wearing this hat myself, and I immediately went from being a loser basement dweller who talks about weird people on the internet to, it's available for a limited time only, so get it right now before it's gone at turkeytom.shop. I repeat, turkeytom.shop. Now back to the video. While there were many obstacles in his way, he learned how to diet and figured out how to exercise, despite having no actual weights due to them being frequently taken away from the inmates. Along with learning about fitness, Wes began reading quote books, literally just books compiling proverbial wisdom and quotes from a variety of people. As unusual as that may sound, this is one of the claims that I find believable, given his propensity to just sporadically rattle off random quotes in his videos and expound on their meaning while relating them to his experience. It's actually quite fitting for him to be unable to read actual full books and only short excerpts. And if you think otherwise, here's Wes detailing one of his brilliant experiences with literature.
All I did was read the Bible cover to cover like 5 times. I really thought, this is crazy, this might piss some people off, but this is the reality of what it is. I thought the Bible was just so confusing that that's what its purpose was. To just, when you're going through hard times, to just read the most confusing thing in the world to where it just literally distracted you from all your pain.
On the other hand, some aspects of his prison experience have been chronically doubted over the years. It's not worth it to get into the details of it, but over hundreds of videos, Wes talks about taking part in prison riots, running hardcore yards, and putting in work, which could mean anything from carrying some drugs for the gang you're in, all the way to taking someone's life. Going back to his paperwork, we can see that he has a couple of extra charges for drug possession and taking part in a hunger strike. So while it is certain that he engaged in some extracurricular activities during his stay at the big house, you have to take his word for pretty much all the rest. Oh, and there's one other thing about his paperwork. He proudly hooped it. What's hooping, you may be asking? Well, it's when a prisoner sticks some contraband up his soft interior premium leather man wallet. Not only did he do it, but he also strongly recommends it as a practice.
You're gonna go strip out, you get that butthole check going. They always love that. They gotta make sure you're ready. My paperwork's hooped. Do you have to hoop your paperwork? No. Do you like to show up on point like me? You better. You better.
I know it's low-hanging fruit to make fun of this, and everyone who's covered this guy has done it, but when a big buff white guy is shouting about how important it is to keep your files safely tucked away in your booty, how can you not find it funny? After 8 long years of hooping his paperwork and putting in work for the big homies,
and my homies sat there and dug me out,
Wes was finally released and spent the next year and a half living out of his grandma's house while putting together his coaching business. And if his Facebook posts are to be trusted, he did, at least initially, have a lot of success with his clients. To give credit where credit is due, and whether he was being truthful about personally experiencing these things or not, the first few dozen or so of his videos that he uploaded to his YouTube channel are actually quite entertaining. The combination of grisly stories about the inner workings of the prison system, with motivational quotes cautioning his viewers away from material gain and pleasure seeking as a source of validation, made for pretty effective messaging.
The second I lose that connection with my people, the second I validate myself with monetary gain, the second I'm looking at anything other for that day than to be appreciative and be grateful, my life goes to. It don't matter if I'm in that new Benz. It don't matter if I got that new pad. It don't matter if I have no more money concerns by my own admission. It don't matter.
Another staple of these early videos was Wes's delivery, which was mostly stable calm, making the moments where he did raise the intensity in his voice either impactful or extremely funny.
Prison, food, first off, the mother food. I remember this fool, man. He died. Rest in peace. His name was Evil. Now this he has a 7-inch banger hanging out his ass when they strip us out. And never shit on somebody's dreams. First you strip out, you show them your butthole. So in the penitentiary, my morning program was always the same. I wake up, I go take a right away. You say you never take a day off, but do you get sick? And I'm like, no, I don't believe in getting sick. I don't even participate in that. He had Hitler on his face right here, Chucky on the other side. I mean, a swastika his whole back. He was actually, people are gonna make fun of this, but he was a good motherfucker. 2 dudes in the gym right now talking about how men aren't men anymore. And they both got both of them got and they're talking about how men aren't men anymore. These motherfuckers by definition, are crossing gender lines willingly. They only know you by your butthole in there. They see my face and they're like, oh, who are you again? And then I just bend over, I show them the butthole. Oh, Wes Watson, how you doing, bro? What's up? Nice to meet you again. People even trip on me when I sit down to use the toilet out here, because when I sit down to piss, I sit facing the wall and pull my out the side of my shorts, and they're wondering what the when they ask me about my Himalayan salt. Google it, homie. Google it. Google it, homie. Homie, Google that. Homie, can you Google it? Google it.
These videos quickly erupted in viewership, with many of them accumulating millions of views in a very short time, successfully ingratiating Wes with the online prison content community. He was already collaborating with other content creators in this sphere, and for about a year, things were going up exponentially for Wes. But come 2020, they started to change. As he slowly ran out of prison stories to tell, his content started shifting away from it and toward exclusively motivational material and promotion of his self-mastery coaching program, although it appears that most links for it are now broken. However, if you look hard enough, you can still find the link for his program, where you can see that he offered different tiers of direct access to his coaching. The prices ranged from $50 all the way up to the most premium ones that cost $3,000 per month and beyond. And there were options for business mentorship that further increased the price to amounts up to 25 grand. I'm leaving the prices vague and the services he provides vague because, well, he leaves them vague. There are other places in which he can be seen charging hundreds to thousands of dollars with seemingly randomized tiers in exchange for promises of custom nutrition, training programs, and weekly Zoom calls. Off of these services, he claims to make up to $200,000 daily and up to $2 million monthly. Sound like a lie? It almost certainly is. Though there's no doubt he was making a decent amount of money in the Hustlers University kind of way, he likely exaggerates it a lot because part of what he's selling to people is the promise that they can become like him. Literally, he coaches people to become coaches and tells them they can make the kind of money he claims to be making. This is like a hybrid between social engineering and a pyramid scheme. While his content was notably becoming diluted as the years went on, it only really started becoming bad in 2022, as other prison channels piled on, poking holes into Wes's prison stories and his claims that he put on all of his muscle naturally. Wes's content nosedived in quality as it went down another peg, from motivational content to downright get-rich-quick scheme tier slop, all while he showed off sports cars and mega mansions.
So they saw me get out of prison. They saw me go from my grandma's house to my first loft, to my first condo, to my first Rolls Royce. Now I have 2 mansions, 3 Rolls Royces, 3 Lamborghinis. I make close to $3 million a month.
If you're at all familiar with how these social media influencers like to do things, you don't even gotta wonder if it's bought or rented. It's all rented. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. Also in 2022, we see another major hypocrisy rear its head. Over the past years of his content, Wes speaks almost constantly about how his greatest vice, above drugs and above material validation, is his anger, and how much he prioritized keeping it under control and not exploding on people, because in his estimation, he would instantly go back to jail for good if he failed to do so. Initially, it seems like this really mattered to him.
And I call moms. First thing you do is call moms when something bad happens. So I hit moms up and I'm like, Mom, I'm in the shoe, some bad happened. I'm gonna be here a long time, very long time. It's rough, you know. And she goes, she just put me in tears whenever I speak about it. But she says, you've proven you can hurt people. Can you prove you can't? Because at that moment, I realized how weak I was for continually falling victim to something that caused me and my family so much pain.
But over time, it seems he settled into his ex-con tough guy persona and began letting his real self show.
I was just down the street at a very successful man's shop where I dropped my wife off to get some beauty stuff done.
You dropped your wife off with a...
Well, some beauty can go there. I'll you up right here if you say anything about my goddamn wife. I swear to God. So don't say nothing right there, bro.
I was just...
Stop right there. Stop right there, okay? And don't say anything about dropping my wife off. I dropped her off at a beauty place.
I was curious.
Okay, yeah, but you were starting to go somewhere, right?
I was just curious.
Yeah, but 100% don't go there.
That skinny little kid better watch out. Wes is so huge he could pick that kid up and hoop his entire body, no problem. In that clip, they're both talking about Wes's wife, Valerie, a tattoo artist and model he'd been with for a couple of years and married in late 2021. In a video from around the time they got married, Wes talked about having struggled with unspecified issues revolving around addiction and anger in his relationship. But it was in the context of having overcome those issues. Well, doesn't seem like those issues were really overcome, as in early to mid 2022, Valerie made a series of posts talking about her relationship with Wes, revealing that it had all fallen apart due to domestic violence situations.
Pretty much all my got tossed out like I'm a dog. The first time I was actually like on a psychiatric hold, and he had already had somebody like living with him that found on the internet that's like an escort. We don't know who she is. But no, he does not follow any rules that he gives you guys, and it's to the point where it's disgusting. He's physically hurt me so many times that it's unforgivable.
After telling her followers about it, she expressed that, at least at the time, she had no interest in sharing the evidence she had of what took place, as she fully intended to press charges and deal with it through court. Now, while I wasn't able to find it due to how fickle the presence of these videos are on platforms like Instagram and TikTok, Reddit users have discussed another video in which Valerie and Wes argue over her supposedly buying too many pairs of sunglasses. Must be real expensive sunglasses to put a dent on his $2 million a month income. Eventually, one of the users replied to his thread corroborating Valerie's claims that Wes was already seeing someone else when he kicked her out of the house that she was living in with her son, whom Wes previously bragged about adopting. A little while after these allegations were made and they separated, Valerie surfaced in an interview with the channel Cinemills, where she spoke about what had happened, reiterating her claims but with a noticeably generous tone about Wes, almost as if the reality of what had happened hadn't fully materialized and she halfway justified his actions. Due to there being no easily available evidence backing her up at the time, and the fact that she herself admitted to attracting that kind of situation, as well as struggling with alcohol abuse during the time she was with Wes, her claims were easy to dismiss. However, I'll briefly skip ahead on the timeline here. Years after this breakup took place, their divorce proceedings were stalling, and Wes continued to occasionally mention her and her son in his videos and say that he still loved her, while suggesting that she was the problematic person in the relationship. When she got fed up with this situation, Valerie decided to once again speak out about her experience with Wes. After ranting about how much it was weighing on her, she finally shared the evidence she'd spoken about a few years prior.
Wes opens that little window so I can't even use the restroom in privacy. And he just closed it so he wouldn't be recorded. And now he's crying outside the restroom door. What the f are you doing?
Along with this video came the pictures of her bruises, including one that resulted from him kicking her in the head, a move we'll later come to find out is his forte. It shouldn't really be surprising that a convicted felon did what a convicted felon does, but still, it's jarring to actually see the aftermath of an assault of this kind. Unfortunately, all of this wasn't easily accessible in 2022, but people were already growing quite suspicious of Wes's public persona. After Valerie did the interview in August, things did stay silent for a few months, until the Wes Watson subreddit started getting more and more momentum as it picked apart the house of cards that was his life. They quickly found out the obvious. He did not own the mansion and was only renting it to make videos. But the further they looked into how he conducted his business, the more it became evident that Wes wasn't just a grifter, but instead a full-on serial scammer who didn't even bother to give his clients the bare minimum of what he promised. By early 2023, we have one of the largest and most significant posts that tried to reveal just exactly how Wes operated his quote-unquote coaching. A Reddit user by the name of the Dutch Demon made a thread titled "How Wes Watson Almost Scammed Me at a $1,500, introducing it by saying that he'd been a fan of Wes for years and had his interest peaked when he discovered Wes offered not only a fitness program, but also a business program, which supposedly had turned many of his followers rich in a short period of time. With these great results in mind, in October 2022, Dutch decided to shoot Wes a DM, expressing interest, while admitting that he didn't have the necessary $3,000 to pay for it in full. At which point, Wes gave him a generous discount at 50%. You heard right, he cut the price by half. What a charitable man.
You fold it over so many times, it's this big. Look at it. It's this big. You put a glove around it 3 or 4 times, you twist it up and you shove it up your ass.
The insanity began almost instantly when Dutch, being in a different time zone, thought Wes had either forgotten about or missed their scheduled phone call. When Dutch texted Wes about it, he immediately started chewing him out and saying he was going to have to pay the other half of the amount if he ever wanted to work with Wes. Despite this overreaction, Dutch took Wes's words to heart and apologized for bothering him, which did manage to calm him down for the time being, and the two eventually scheduled the next call. The thing is, they didn't talk about making any more payments, so Dutch assumed that Wes had changed his mind about rescinding his discount. When the time for the next call came, it was rescheduled again, and again, and again. For the next 3 months, Dutch never managed to actually get on a call with Wes, and of course, his suspicions started to grow. When Wes finally grew grew tired of jerking this guy around, he suddenly remembered the $1,500 thing and decided to use it as an excuse as to why he had no obligation to ever get on a call with Dutch, and told him to just get a refund. I mean, it's pretty mean-spirited to keep leading someone on like this just to cancel on them repeatedly until you tell them to refund the money, but at least he was gonna get a refund, right? Well, think again. The first thing Dutch noticed when he began to scrutinize the replies he got from Wes was that on Instagram, Wes typed a certain way and expressed being very aware of why their first meeting didn't take place, saying that it got moved around. Meanwhile, Wes on Trainerize, the specific app that Wes required his course takers to use, expressed having no idea what happened and even speculated that it might have just gotten canceled. This immediately tipped Dutch off to realize that Wes had someone else running the Trainerize. But the worst is yet to come. When Dutch tried to get the refund Wes told him to get, he contacted Trainerize's support only to find out that he wasn't eligible to get any money back due to the fact that it had been 3 months since he had made the appointment. 3 months. Exactly how long Wes spent leading this guy on before telling him to get a refund. Almost as if that was a deliberate move to try to squeeze $1,500 out of this guy without moving a finger. Fortunately, when Dutch talked to his bank, he did get his refund, but it wasn't because Wes was contacted and agreed to it or anything. When Dutch's bank reached out to Wes and his team, they simply did not respond whatsoever for an entire month. For many people, this was the testimony that flipped the switch, and suddenly dozens of people came out of the woodwork to share similar stories about trying to work with Wes. Whether they still resonated with Wes's message or not, his followers slowly came to the realization that regardless of what he said in the videos, his actions told a very different story. Comments under Dutch's post remark on his online presence jumping the shark and becoming exclusively about money, as well as speculating that the testimonies from people who worked with Wes were probably astroturfing, which is when fake posts are made to trick real people into falling for a narrative. On this very thread, there were some posts that were hardcore going to bat in Wes's defense that raised suspicions. And while obviously it could just be dedicated fans of his, scammers paying for human botnets to run defense for them online is definitely not unheard of. Given the only thing keeping Wes from going broke is people seeing him as trustworthy and falling for his scam, it'd make more sense to put some money toward maintaining his image. Even people who were aware of Valerie's claims about Wes, but were initially dismissive of her, were reconsidering the things she said when they got to interact with him directly. Another recurring aspect of followers' interactions with him is the consistency with which he's just very rude to potential clients, as if they were wasting his time by asking him perfectly reasonable questions about what his program offered. Sadly, this lack of respect he demonstrated wasn't enough to stop others from going through with paying for his plan. Some expressed that they had a better experience with his fitness program as opposed to his business program. But even this wasn't a universal experience. For example, Reddit user King Andrew described directly informing Wes that he had back issues and couldn't deadlift. But when his supposedly customized training program came back, it was the default training he sent to everyone, including deadlifts, of course. As for his dieting advice, it was as blunted as his training advice, as he told every client of his to be in a severe calorie deficit regardless of whether losing weight was their objective or not. In King Andrew's case, he followed it and had his testosterone levels plummet to that of an 80-year-old man, something that a severe calorie deficit is known to cause. After following his program and not getting the results he wanted, he tried talking to Wes during one of the calls and asked him a few questions, only for Wes to ignore his questions, change the subject, and eventually flip out on him and block him, despite Andrew having paid for another month worth of his program that he never got, and no refunds either. Andrew closes his post speculating that Wes is still very much a danger to society and will eventually find his way back to prison. How prophetic. Over time, the subreddit became filled to the brim with people telling the exact same story, enjoying his early content on YouTube, sometimes even getting something out of his fitness program, then getting on his business program only to get nothing for the money. And inevitably, it always ends the same way too. They try to get Wes to make follow-ups and answer their questions, but it exclusively results in him getting mad, blocking them, and refusing to refund their money, forcing them to talk to their bank or credit card company to get a chargeback. Additionally, the users of the subreddit noticed that whenever a new expose thread went up, dozens of positive slide threads were created to crowd out the negative ones. Whenever the clearly alt accounts behind these slide threads posted to the negative threads, it was always to threaten others with lawsuits for defamation and slander. These alts didn't survive for long though, as the two main ones behind the spam to the subreddit got suspended. Eventually, even his fitness program was revealed to be a complete sham, as Wes was unable to provide any decent answers for whenever people asked him basic diet questions on call, going as far as to call the person who asked it a dumbass and telling them to uppercut themselves. Another great anecdote is when someone told him they had an elbow injury, and his response was to send a screenshot of a Google image search for elbow rehab movements. Eventually, this discussion broke out of Reddit and made its way to YouTube, where it gained even more traction, since unlike Reddit, the people talking about their experiences with Wes's program had their faces attached to it. One of the first people to break it was fellow prison and fitness channel Joey Stacks, who got a good amount of traction in late 2024.
Wes Watson is not your online coach, guys. Everybody who goes and signs up for Wes Watson's online coaching program probably has Joe Schmo really coaching him. Wes sits back and does absolutely nothing for your coaching, guys.
As more people came forward, it became clearer and clearer that behind all the con artist babble front-loading the program, Wes is really just charging 20 grand for people to get on a phone call with him. And even getting on that call isn't a sure deal. Eventually, YouTuber Spencer Cornelia, whose content is centered around covering scammers and shady con artists, dropped his own video on Wes, which actually included some recordings from people who paid for the program and actually got the phone call. I'll let you tell me if this is worth paying 20 grand for.
What's up, Wes? Just wanted to hop on here real quick and thank you for everything. I know you don't got a lot of time, but
if you're not asking a question, I'm gonna fucking kill you. If you're not asking a question, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I told you I was on motherfucking time. Are you gonna ask a question or are you just saying thank you? Because you can fucking text me that motherfucker. I don't take it kindly. I don't give a f.
At what point do I restructure the offering?
Wait till you get there. Jesus Christ, bro. Like, why are we talking about hypotheticals? You're not even close to that.
Yeah, I'm approaching a number that I feel like
You're not. You don't even have any business. Shut up.
So it was. Everything has calories, you idiot. There's calories in protein. What are you talking about? Okay. Sir, are you brain dead? Dude, don't call it fasting then. That's the deal. It's not called fasting, you idiot. I'm saying fast. And why don't you just be Pablo? Your fucking ass. Sit your ass down, dude. You guys, listen. You need to be smarter with your goddamn questions. You're wasting. Wes, I know you. I know. I heard you say that before to do some research, and I was doing research, and it was just like it basically amounted to like amino acid pills. When I was 13, I literally understood the question you're asking. At 13.
As damaging as these clips were on their own, another thing Spencer brought attention to was one video from another prison YouTuber, Convict's Perspective, who managed to get a hold of Wes's prison record, showing that he'd done all of his prison time outside of the state of California, meaning every single one of his stories about prison were also complete fiction. Lastly, Spencer also covered Wes's delayed response to Valerie, in which he says that she was the domestic abuser, not him, and that she allegedly tried to hurt his mom. Again, these are all allegations and not something that has been formally cleared up in court, but given we have pictures of Valerie's bruises and a video of Wes charging at her, the evidence only really points in one direction. Despite the scammer angle of Wes Watson's online persona being confirmed beyond the shadow of a doubt, people continued to be gullible enough to fall for his shtick to the tune of $30,000 and even $40,000. It would be very unfortunate if this is all the story amounted to, a con man who got away with it. But guys like Wes never get tired of pushing their luck. In early 2024, Wes incurred a curse upon his head by directly engaging with the Forbidden One.
Up by my pad, run into the man right here. What's up? Miami's like that. It's a movie.
Given Wes's superhuman hooping capabilities, this was like an immovable object meeting an unstoppable force. Very soon after this, the Diddy curse struck, and the catalyst of Wes's downfall took place when he made the mistake of taking part in a Fresh and Fit podcast panel. When the host of the Crucible podcast, Andrew Wilson, expressed skepticism about his money-centric worldview, Wes decided to spend the next few minutes making a complete fool out of himself.
I'm just asking, do you have money?
I just said no. I'm broke. I'm a nobody.
No, but really you are?
Yeah.
Like how much money you got?
Probably the $5 in my pocket, not much more.
Can anyone answer for the guy?
Why do they think I'm kidding? I have a family. I take care of an entire family.
If you ain't fit, you can't say it's not all about being in good shape.
Why not? After you make X amount, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if you look at these studies done on this, it does not.
I don't fit no studies.
It does not hugely improve a person's life.
Are you proud of who you are?
Why don't you
are you proud? If you look in the mirror, would you guys say this mother proud of who he is? That's a bag of trash, dude. Pull your shirt off. Tell me you're proud
because
of yourself.
I've been in prison.
Jesus Christ!
Because
look
I've been
at
to
you,
prison.
bro. You got 10-inch arms and tits. Men don't have.
No, they go to prison where they get.
Never been to prison. Look,
That's
he's talking
what
about shit
happens.
you don't know.
They go to prison where they get.
You get your ass beat in
hold
front
on.
of everybody.
His thing out, and then
We can have different opinions.
yeah.
Anyway, back to where I was at.
Boobs.
Yeah. Okay. Prison. But anyway, if you want to follow the successful mantra of a man who tells you he's reformed from prison, understand why they might have gone there to begin with.
This on its own was bad enough for Wes, as he was clearly trying to take part in the conversation, and also clearly coming up short as far as explanations that went beyond quotes, and so he had to default to insulting this guy's appearance. But almost immediately, it gets even worse.
That a rejection of materialism is something missing in society, and I do think that true wealth is the family, and I think that true wealth is having a wife, and true wealth, that is what I think it is. And that is what I think truly success is being able to go home and look your family in the face and know that you're doing everything you can to support them. That's
and then
what
when
I
you
think
go to the beach
success
with
is.
your family, they're like, there's my stud dad right there standing there.
Do you have
that stud right there with his shirt off.
Agree to disagree.
We can
We can move on, but Jesus
yeah.
Christ, men don't have tits. We can agree on that. Physically,
Men usually have hair. We can agree on that too.
He has
Physically.
crossed over gender barriers.
I think we can see each side had different opinions.
By choice, crossing gender barriers. By growing tits.
Okay. Okay. Come on, man.
You fat little bro. Seriously. Like, should I just smack the dude in front of everyone just for the whole
No.
Because he wouldn't do shit.
All right.
This is the thing about life.
No.
You shouldn't talk. You shouldn't back up. You shouldn't. It's people like this think they can talk to someone like me like that. They really think they can. He knows he wouldn't do shit about it, and that's the problem.
It's embarrassing enough to have to resort to making violent threats during an argument, but it's even more embarrassing when your threat is just, this guy thinks he can talk to me like that, right after the guy talked to him like that, and he did nothing. It's like he really got used to acting tough to his camera in his empty rented house.
Look at that stud.
Do you have children?
I do have children.
How many?
I have 2.
You have 2. So are you saying that your Bugatti and your money and everything
If
else
they
is
saw me
worth more
standing
than your
there, they'd be
children?
like, my dad's a superhero. Look what he brought to the table.
Not only did he have no response to Andrew's question about whether his cars were worth more than his kids, Wes had to resort to stretching the truth to even engage with him since he doesn't actually have kids. He was just seeing a chick who did, although we'll get to that later. While these clips already made waves on their own as the wider public began to see what a goofball Wes truly was, they were magnified to a much broader audience when a month later, it was re-uploaded to a channel called Araco TV, where it ballooned up to 8 million views. If that wasn't bad enough, a few days later, Moist Critical made a video reacting to it, which is currently sitting at nearly 3 million views.
This is the problem in society. People like this think they can talk to someone like me like that.
You started it, goofball. Oh my God, he's getting. This is why he privated his Instagram account now. I see. Oh my. He's getting destroyed.
As Charlie repeatedly mentions during this video, this entire incident made hate comments get to a point where Wes privated his Instagram and severely decreased his upload frequency, taking a few days off to cope with the public humiliation he endured. However, he remained active on the coaching side of things, trying to rope as many people into his program as possible. But even there, people found ways to continue messing with him, and he was still not handling it well.
Is Diddy with you?
What'd you say?
Is Diddy there with you?
Weirdo. Another one of you weirdos. God, you dumb little you, dude.
Oh, you a bitch, Wes.
You can actually hear the moment where Wes realized what he said here and is taken aback. Almost like for a moment, he knew he had genuinely screwed up.
God, you dumb little you, dude.
Due to how horribly this entire situation was going for him, he decided, like all of these types of dudes eventually do, to play the victim. In late 2024, he posted a video claiming that these were AI recordings and that people were attempting to extort him on Instagram. I'm no expert, but that didn't sound like AI. Whatever the case is, it's the least of his offenses. Sure, there's a lot of entertainment to be had seeing Wes embarrass himself by getting tangled up in these petty dramas, like when he got in a fight with a random gardener because his leaf blower was too loud for Wes's liking.
They still haven't made leaf blowers that don't make it crazy. How the is that possible? How is it possible that in 2024 they have electric cars that go thousands of miles? They drive across country on a battery and they're faster than some gas-powered cars. But we still have we don't have electric leaf blowers. Shut! Watch, here you go. Hey!
However, it seems like the really dark aspect of Wes comes from his behavior with women. A long time after he'd broken up with Valerie, he proudly announced that he was now dating the Instagram famous girl, Morgan Brittany. For those of you who are understandably out of the loop, this is her.
Wrong. No, you shut the up. You shut the up and you're you shut the film me. I'm Instagram famous, you bum.
As she shared his trait of being a hostile nuance to bystanders, Morgan and Wes were a match made in, well, not quite heaven, but you get the point. Almost immediately after they got together, she got a tattoo of his name right above her eyebrow. Surprising no one, she immediately regretted this decision as they broke up soon after in the messiest way possible. She instantly took to her Instagram stories to suggest he was still in the habit of hooping things, claimed he verbally abused her, pressured her to post with him to make him look more normal, and regularly abused steroids, showing pictures of how he looked when he was fresh out of prison and natural to prove it. Among other claims she made in her stories, she also showed a video of Wes driving while recording himself and looking at his phone with a newborn baby in the back seat. She also added that Wes frequently made racist remarks about everyone, including her, saying he yells the N-word for breakfast, and calling her a Nigerian for touching his car window. Most damningly is that Morgan, like Valerie, alleged he committed acts of domestic violence. While she didn't provide any evidence of this, all of these stories were enough to get Wes to go private again and send her a cease and desist, accusing her of cyber harassing him. So much for the prison-hardened felon image. Despite his many attempts to either silence or recontextualize these claims from every woman who had been with him, they only gained strength over time, and his next girl would be no different, although she's not exactly just the next girl. You see, when Valerie and Wes were breaking up, it wasn't a secret that he immediately got with another woman named Angie, and given that Morgan also refers to a certain Angie as his ex he's going back to, this is most likely the same woman. Having established that she keeps going back to him, and knowing the fact that she has multiple kids, the video I'm about to show highlights just why all of this is very concerning, to say the least.
Are you filming me?
I'm gonna film you now then.
Why?
Get away from me. Go get out of the room.
This video, which seems very much to show an instance of domestic abuse from Wes against Angie, was released in late 2024, and just a little while later, Angie had apparently broken up with him yet again.
When I first left Wes, he took the gifts back, he took all those things, right?
All those personal gifts.
Yeah, personal gifts.
Yeah.
Clothes, shoes, jewelry, all that stuff. He would create so much discord during the day of, you're not doing enough, I need this, I need that, you're incapable, you can't do this, just a whole bunch of bashing all day long. And I'm in the room putting the baby to sleep, and then he writes this beautiful, heartfelt message about how much he loves me and how all these great things about the girls and I and all these things and whatever. And it was so beautiful to read it, but it didn't feel real at all in any which way.
Note?
No, like on Instagram. It's not
he's doing this for the world.
Yeah, for the world. You know, this, I'm reading this and I'm like, wow, this is so beautiful and so heartfelt. But I was like, that's not the same person.
That's not the guy in the other bedroom.
The description of him taking all of the gifts he gave back is once again consistent with how he's been described by other women he's been with. What's even more iconic is that she eventually repeated what Andrew Wilson told him on the Fresh and Fit podcast almost word for word.
Yeah.
Because when you have a family unit, it kind of grounds you and brings you back to reality, and you realize what's truly important in this world. It's not just the Bugattis and the mansions and any of those things. It's truly like, you know, honoring and taking care of kids.
Later on, the same source that divulged the video of Wes allegedly hurting Angie made a post showing a woman who looked conspicuously like another girlfriend of his, Gabby, on an escort website. While it's borderline impossible to document the timeline of when Wes switches between women, it probably coincides with when he screams at enough people over phone calls to be able to afford their services. During Angie's last breakup with Wes, she sent this Instagram audio message, once again echoing an issue that both Morgan and Valerie described Wes having.
He's mentally disturbed. He literally called me and was just saying, oh, you can vent to me, and calling me a bitch, and my kids are...
This audio apparently came on the heels of Wes directing one of his verbal abuse tirades at one of her kids, which explains why she'd break up with him again. Honestly, it's hard to tell how many women Wes has run into this exact same pattern of behavior with, but one is already too many, let alone 4. And the fact that there were kids involved in 2 of those instances is just dark. Right now, I'll pivot away from Wes's run-ins with Angie, but if at any point you see them together again as I go over the rest of the story, just know that these two are constantly on and off with no rhyme or reason to it. Going back to Wes Wes's online antics now, he made absolutely no effort to hide the fact that he thought it was reasonable to assault people who did not initiate an altercation. If you're at all tuned into fitness content on YouTube, then you probably heard about the situation between Mike Van Wyck and Jeff Nippard that took place in late 2024. To summarize it for you, Jeff Nippard is a science-based lifter whose content is largely centered around using studies to optimize training as a natural bodybuilder. On the other hand, Mike Van Wyck is not a big fan of science-based lifting, to put it mildly. Jeff responded to one of his videos online. The two eventually went to the same gym, and when Jeff went to interact with him, Mike hit him in the throat twice. CCTV footage clearly showed that while Jeff was the one who approached Mike, he clearly did nothing threatening or physical to warrant that response. But does context really matter when you're
Ripped, rich, rare. Ripped, rich, and rare. Ripped, rich, rare? You ain't gonna have the first two if you ain't the third. And if you think
Wes thought he should weigh in and give his 2 cents, despite knowing absolutely nothing about what happened or why, resulting in this abomination of a take.
So you guys, there's a video online going around of some monster-ass fool pushing some keyboard warrior princess little punk by his neck. I guess the guy heckles the big guy online or something. You are in the comments going, he should press charges. No, he should get pushed by the neck and then get his head stepped on, and everybody else should say, good, don't talk to a monster if you're a little peon.
There was a time when this guy at least put some effort into pretending he wasn't a complete violent meathead felon who identified with every other violent meathead felon. But that time was long gone. What's funny is if you look into Mike Van Wyck's history further, you'll find out that while he was pretty comfortable jabbing Jeff Nippard in the throat, he didn't even come close to doing such a thing when Joey Stacks was up in his face. The same Joey Stacks who I mentioned earlier. Unfortunately, this is just how criminals act. They see windows of opportunity to pick on people, and if they feel they'll get away with it, they will take that opportunity. Anything beyond that is just a rationalization. It's telling that he has to bring up his not 10 years spent in prison to make a point about the incident.
I was in the penitentiary for 10 years watching people get their heads sawed off, watching motherfuckers get splatted. You can't even just normally fight in most places.
If he likes the way prison works so much, he can just go back to hooping his paperwork any day. Although he'll probably beg to be sent to an out-of-state prison again if he does, due to all the negative attention he attracted for lying about having gone to California prisons. John Bravo, who was already covering the situation regarding Jeff Nippard, started giving some attention to Wes after he weighed in. And this is a good time to mention that the majority of the following events were documented and researched by John, who has relentlessly documented Wes ever since with great success. Unsurprisingly, Wes wasn't able to handle the scrutiny and privated his Instagram account. In keeping with his incessant desire to go back behind bars, he personally messaged John Bravo to invite him to go fight him at his gym, only to block him immediately before John could even respond. Later on, it became clear that this was a pattern for Wes, who had already gotten into an altercation with a personal trainer in that gym in the past, and continued to try and fight people there in the future. Interestingly enough, this is what the personal trainer had to say about his altercation with Wes.
He disrespected my client in the middle of the gym, so we had words, and as a man I challenged him to go outside and settle it, and he refused. Other words were exchanged, some derogatory comments. I was then called into management, and aka Wes Watson is a snitch, and went to the management and cried about it. Then after that, I was told that I was no longer allowed to be at my place of business.
It didn't take long for the crew of miscreants that Wes surrounded himself with to start targeting John as well, threatening to put him in the hospital and the whole nine.
Don't press charges when you get up or whatever it is, you know. Don't press charges on me when you gotta go to the hospital and you got them bills to pay because you chose to mouth off and get them up with me. Don't press charges. That's the only thing I gotta say. But when you take the L, which I know you will, whoever haters want to step up, don't press charges. That's the biggest thing.
I like how it's a mantra for these guys to beg for people not to press charges on them. It's like they can't accept that in the real world, assaulting people for being mean to you is a crime. Honestly, there should be some way for this kind of institutionalized loony to opt into going back to prison, because they clearly miss it.
I did 20 years.
Another piece of evidence pointing to this is that, corroborating what Morgan alluded to, when John spoke to Valerie, she claimed Wes had her help him do some hooping, which earned him the nickname Peg Watson. You can take a Yakubian brother out of prison, but you'll have to pry the paperwork out of his cold, dead prison pocket.
It won't detect a phone that you've hooped, you know?
In late November 2024, Charlie dropped yet another video on Wes that got well over 2 million views. And like clockwork, Wes continued to post Instagram stories talking about how little criminal being gadooshed affected him, only to shut down his Instagram, filter his YouTube comments, and stay mostly radio silent in response. For all of the talk about how the only people who hated him were nerds who were jealous of what a jacked stud he was, his following had now shrunk down to a small patch of sycophants, while pretty much anyone with a pulse realized how much of a joke he and his content had become. Literally millions of people tuning in exclusively to see him make a fool of himself. Yet, in his little world, he was being persecuted by a small group of, Reddit gamers.
Find me one of these gamers. Just find me one where their gaming avatar looks anything like them. I bet their gaming avatar looks more like a superhero.
The man's ability to read the room went the way of his hairline. Long gone, never to be seen ever again. Now, if we were talking about literally anyone else, right now would be an organic stopping point, as Wes had locked himself into this cycle of publicly humiliating himself until his inevitable bankruptcy due to his scam not bringing in enough to afford his rent. However, we're not talking about anyone else. We're talking about career criminal Wes Watson. Before the year could end, news came out that after repeatedly doxing the gym he goes to and inviting people to fight him there every single day, his wishes finally came true. On Christmas, the actual day the Lord was born, Wes was posting online about how much he didn't care about what people said about him.
A lot of you guys are positive, normal people, so you never go on a website like Reddit. Only the weirdest of the weird people who watch weird-ass types of porn go on Reddit. They're a bunch of the lowest weirdos ever.
Only a man of his 5'8" stature could find himself talking about Reddit on Christmas Day. By the way, if he's never on it, how does he know it's full of freaky stuff? Can we expect a Wes Watson Thug Hunters collab coming soon? Can't wait for him to do a squat program with these guys. Now, during his stories, he went on this rant.
These are a bunch of weirdos who put wigs on men and makeup on men and post it and don't think they're weird.
I'm surprised I haven't brought this up yet, but what Wes is talking about here is one troll of his who goes by the extremely fitting name of Trans Wes Watson. By simply putting lipstick and wig filters on Wes's videos and pictures, they secured real estate in Wes Watson's mind. They actually own it too, not just rent it like Wes does. And yes, I am referring to them as they because I respect Trans Wes Watson's pronouns, and so should you. The whole context of the clips I've just played is that people began leaving reviews on the gym Wes went to, notifying him that he'd been inviting people to fight there. Obviously, this did nothing to stop Wes from continuing to do it, and a couple of days later, someone actually showed up. As far as I know, the first person to talk about this incident publicly was Wes himself.
Somebody pulled up and it didn't go the way they wanted it to go. You'll probably see the details later, but cops are still here. They're figuring out what the situation is and go from there. It was self-defense, clear as day. I was sitting down on a bench. Dude came up. He's about 7 foot, just wanted to start a fight.
The reason why Wes had to rush and give a statement about this, obviously, is because he wanted to get a grip on the narrative early on. Fortunately, people trusted him so little that they immediately got to investigating what truly happened. And one of the first people to do so, the aforementioned John Bravo, was told by other gym goers that the person Wes fought was special needs. While no one knew any better, Wes continued to spam lies about what went down, saying it was a fair one-on-one and he only fought in self-defense.
I don't condone violence. Why do you think every time someone talked and filmed me, I just was the bigger man? The guy's just talking. He don't know what he's gonna get. Just let him talk. But then the second somebody put their hands on me, it was a wrap, okay? I don't condone it. I'll walk away.
Eventually, John obtained the full footage. While I can't show all of it here due to it being extremely graphic, this guy, who is not a 7-foot-tall monster gangster, by the way, approached Wes and started talking to him, which was later revealed to be an invitation for just the two of them to go outside and fight, as Wes had spoken about on his Instagram. Cowering out of it, Wes refused to step out of the gym and immediately struck the guy with his weight belt. At this point, the guy backs up and doesn't escalate, only for Wes's buddies to jump in and hold the guy down while threatening to hit him with a dumbbell, allowing Wes to pull on the guy's hair, stick his fingers in his eye, and punch him over 50 times in the head. During the scuffle, Wes and his buddies delivered 4 or 5 soccer kicks to the guy's head and cut a strand of his hair off. This cowardly incident instantly ballooned to extreme notoriety, as Charlie once again brought it to the attention of his audience. And no matter how much Wes lied about it, he was clearly the aggressor in the situation. The guy only showed up after Wes explicitly invited him to fight him outside of the gym 1v1. one. The guy never struck Wes, and the closest thing to aggression he got to was supposedly lunging at him. But in the video, it looks like what actually happened was that one of Wes's buddies struck him on the back with a dumbbell and caused him to fall, not lunge toward Wes. Eventually, John Bravo also got the body cam footage from the cops who went to the gym that day, and Wes, being the former Oklahoma prison inmate who was released early on good behavior, acted accordingly and showed his COs his brown balloon knot so they'd recognize him.
He told me that's fine, and I said I don't want to, and he pushed me.
Okay, so what did the other people, the other two guys have to do with it?
They said stop, like we don't want to fight, we don't want a problem. I'm famous. I don't want to fight anybody. But when they antagonize you, someone kept telling me, Britt, I want to fight. You got to then do it. You get sick of it, you know? I'm famous. I get 90 million messages a day of people saying the same thing. Yeah. But I'm just saying I don't have the messages because they harass me and I block them right away.
I'd imagine that a hardened convict would, I don't know, stay silent when the cops come talking to him.
You don't ever admit the existence of this thing. Ever.
He should have stood trial like a man.
Not only does he sing like a bird, he has this zesty gym guy come over and advocate for him. If you can believe it, the gym rep actually tried to get the cops to get rid of evidence.
So,
no, you're good. I just want you to know because
if the guy feels can you erase that? Why?
Hear me out, bro. Hear me out. I cannot. All I can do, I can't take his phone and be like, no, erase that, right? It is what it is.
Can you ask him
no,
to erase it?
Sir, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not getting involved in that.
Despite Wes doing his best to keep the police from seeing the messages, the guy he beat up provided them, along with video of the incident. Being the genius that Wes is, he actually further incriminated himself while talking to the cops.
Yeah, next time I'm gonna kill a motherfucker. No. Straight up, because I'm sick of this. Like me defending myself, even have to fucking sit here right now.
Poor guy. Wes was clearly just trying to train for a soccer championship when his victim fell with his head in front of his foot. It happens to the best of us. As the police officers grew increasingly skeptical of his story, due to the fact they knew he kicked the guy in the head after he was down, he began losing his mind at them.
There is always a threat if he's moving. He could pull out a gun. Admit it. Quit lying. You don't know if a guy's getting up if he has a weapon. I do have a point, so quit trying to make yours.
You gotta love how he's accusing them of lying. It's hard to believe how real projection is until you see just how much it's the default behavior of a compulsive liar like Wes. Now, after the incident went down, Wes was still free for a few weeks, during which he got into it with another random person who wasn't even really insulting him at a CVS.
I'm the wrong dude too, bro. Who are you?
Shut the fuck up right now. Wrong dude.
I ain't that dude. No. You know how fast I could take you down? I don't look like that dude, but I am that dude. Let me show you something. Well, why you gotta be rude?
Because honestly, bro.
I'm saying nice car, you gotta act like I'm nobody. Who are you? Okay, Mr. Tough Guy, calm down. I'm just saying nice car. Yeah, you too, bro.
I honestly can't believe it. This remake might even be better than the original.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
That's what real ballers get up to, fighting people at the local CVS. Finally, after weeks of business as usual, the consequences of his actions finally came knocking. As on the 6th of February, 2025, Wes found himself in a familiar position, in the back of a cop car, getting booked. The body cam footage was procured and released by John Bravo, and once again, Wes couldn't go 5 seconds without yapping during his arrest.
That dude came and assaulted me. You saw the video, right? Come on, dog. I was protecting myself. You don't have to handcuff me. I'm going willingly.
No,
I'm solid, bro.
I know, but we still got we got something that we got to do. We bring the team for now.
Let's not put it on camera.
I think that somewhere in the midst of narcissistic delusion Wes lives in, he actually thought he could talk himself out of the situation, Better Call Saul style. That wasn't the case here. And what's even funnier is that while he's getting cuffed, he tells the escort he was seeing at the time to call his mom. Meanwhile, she shows absolutely no concern for him and just wants the keys so she can get in the house and get her dog. Despite knowing they have access to all the footage and the text messages, Wes once again decides to lie to the cops and tell them that the guy he beat up slapped him on the head and initiated the fight. If it weren't such insane drivel, I'd play through the arrest footage because it contains straight minutes of Wes yapping nonstop. When he arrives at the station to get processed, he realizes what's about to happen. They're gonna measure his height. You see, among the many lies Wes tells about himself, one of them is that he is 6 feet tall. In an Instagram story, when his height is brought up, he avidly denies it while wearing conspicuously thick-soled shoes. During his arrest, however, this is what he tells the cops.
No one can check my height and take a picture of it, so you better quit saying I'm 5'4". Online, they just be joking. They're like, you're 5'4". You know?
Oh, like all the trolls
trolling. Yeah, no.
While I'm sure someone has said he's 5'3" before to piss him off, and probably succeeded at it, the real claim was that he was 5'8". And what do you know? When his arrest information went up online, he was listed at precisely 5'8". That means this guy is actually walking around in public with 4-inch lifts to pretend he's taller. 4 inches is the kind of height you'd expect to see on a woman's heel, which once again brings us back to the prophecy of trans Wes Watson coming to reality. His arrest information also reveals that he's being charged with felony battery, which, given he's done a few years in prison already, is probably not going to end well for him. A day after his arrest, his bond hearing took place, and during it, the judge gave Wes a Sigma check to ensure he was mewing.
If he comes to your gym, call the police. Don't engage, because if you get arrested for anything else, you'll be locked up in jail until you're trialed.
Okay, I just want to, just real quick.
Mr. Watson, please don't make any statements.
The people who organized this bond hearing somehow missed the fact that he had a prior. Interesting how he didn't butt in to remind them he did 10 years in the can without a peep.
20 years inside, not a peep.
8 years in the can, I wanted to hoop my paperwork. I compromised. I paid for an escort to peg me. Because of this, his bond was set at $5 grand total, meaning all he had to do was take back a few of the gifts he gave to his escort and pawn them in order to be a free man once again. But given that his boy Diddy was just sent to the slammer a few months prior to this, I think Wes was looking forward to the freak off in the prison cell. All jokes aside, the way Wes's escort girl behaved during his arrest was not a coincidence, as she immediately broke up with him and moved on when he went to jail, which he later claimed was due to her getting his phone and finding out he was cheating on her. Once again, John Bravo looked into it and discovered that not only did her escort ad go back up right away, but one of the things she lists as her abilities is, wouldn't you know it, the same exact thing that Wes had always been accused of having his women do, gadooshing him. You know what I mean. It was no big deal though, as Wes has a laundry list of women who are more than willing to help him hoop some paperwork. So soon after, he got back together with Angie, whom he talked down to while recording it to show how much of a man he is.
And greet me when I come in the goddamn house or when I'm around to make sure that she shows she's attracted to me. And she doesn't really do it. And that's a problem we have. What do you want me to do that I don't do?
To be just aware that I'm a mom and the baby is like...
But that's no excuse. I need to be addressed. That's it. I don't need 15 minutes. I don't need 30 minutes. I need to be addressed in a certain way often. And people are like, why? So that I don't have to get it from other because I'm going to get attention from women. And that's what I'm going to do. So either you're going to give it to me or someone else is. So
have it all.
See, the point is make sure you give your man attention.
As much of an absolute goof as this guy is, it's sad that there are still women willing to put themselves through it, especially since Angie has kids and they all have to put up with him screaming in the house all the time at people on the internet.
Find me one of these gamers.
The rest of the month of February was uneventful, but in March, Wes inadvertently revealed details about his ongoing case during a stream with rapper Lil Pump. Assuming the stream was off, he first admitted that he was probably looking at 3 to 5 years, and then began lying, claiming that it was a one-on-one and his friends didn't jump in. It's amazing that even while facing prison time, he continues to stack lie on top of lie, and express how proud he was of what he did, as if it was impressive. While all of the commotion of the previous months was going on, one of the people who capitalized quite well on that trend was one Eric Kanevsky, who made 2 videos doing an over-the-top impression of Wes. And eventually, he decided he was going to go through with an idea that the late great Rich Piana gave him. The original idea was to go to bodybuilding expos, ask people their height and weight, and then immediately go verify it to see if they were lying. Except, instead of a bodybuilding expo, Eric went to Wes's gym. And you can probably guess where this is going. Oddly, when Eric's first 2 videos came out, this was Wes's reaction.
I don't really watch spoof videos about me, but that one was funny. If I saw that guy in person, I'd be like, dude, you are classic. Like, I really thought it was going to piss me off, and I liked the guy after seeing that one. I'm just saying, he was hilarious.
Coincidentally, just as Eric was planning to carry this video to fruition, Wes posted this to his Instagram.
The biggest fairy that you know that swears I'm not 6 foot, have him come to where I go to the gym, and we'll just do a friendly stand by each other and take a picture. Get as many people as you can. Have them come stand next to me, take a picture, and just document. I'm 6 foot, but I'm just going to play into your guys' game because this is one of the most friendly things you guys have ever said about me is that I'm short. You guys think you're hating on me, but it's kind of nice.
Of course, when Eric actually showed up, this is how it went down.
Look at this stud over here.
Dude, suck my dick for the out of here.
Hey, am I 5'8"? Am I 5'8"?
Get the f out of here. That's what I want to find out.
Get out of here, yo.
I didn't even get the chance to ask Wes anything about his height before all of his buddies started swarming me, but he brought up the 5'8" thing himself.
After this pathetic exchange from Wes, he had his friend, the same one who was holding the dumbbell in the video John Bravo got, try to actually steal Eric's camera from the cameraman's hands by force. At least they planned ahead to try and get rid of any potential evidence early this time around. They spent around a minute struggling for the camera before Wes's buddy gave up, but not before he secretly stole the audio receiver from the camera. When they noticed it, they went back to get it, and this is how the conversation went.
Dog, y'all shouldn't have walked up in here with that bull.
So it's alright to just take someone's camera equipment?
You're lucky that whole camera ain't gone, dog.
Why?
What you mean, why?
Why?
You want to walk up here and film with people, that's what the f happens, right there.
He asked people to.
You make videos like that aren't cool.
You saw his video, you said it was funny.
Don't talk to me, don't talk to me, don't talk to me.
Fortunately, they did get the receiver back, and no real violence broke out. But as they themselves speculated, if they hadn't been in a group of 4 people, that might have gone down a bit differently. Besides this near miss, Wes's influencer lifestyle went on without a hitch. Well, sort of. You see, he's really into making all kinds of content with his missus, appearing on podcasts, cross-promoting their Instagram accounts, so on and so forth. However, in one attempt to make a saucy video, Wes posted a few stories of him and Angie engaging in a primitive mating ritual, and accidentally, Wes filmed the reflection of his paperwork on a glass surface. He deleted the story really quickly when he noticed what he had done, but many people had already saved the video, and much to Wes's embarrassment, it looks like his paperwork was stacking up short. I'm not one to body shame my fellow man, but the fact that this even happened is ridiculous enough that it deserves to be mentioned. While it's impossible to know for sure how Wes's story will end, given the fact that he has priors and his trial date for the felony battery charge is coming up, there's a good chance he'll go back to prison for a few years. However, if that doesn't do it, and if his former clients don't figure out a way to hit him with a fraud lawsuit for having them pay for a service they never actually get, something else will: tax fraud. During his appearance in Jack Doherty's stream, he talked about how he spent money in such a way to avoid having to do his taxes. But as someone on Reddit pointed out, this doesn't really add up. And a user named Dapper Tough claimed Wes owed north of $3 million to the IRS. John Bravo later announced he'd be investigating this as well, so we'll probably hear some news about it soon. Whatever the case is, one fact remains. Because of how proud he is of being a violent ex-con that doesn't care about the consequences, Wes is sure to find himself back where he began, which is to say, in a prison cell. I don't wish this fate on people, but honestly, when you do what he did, there's nothing besides prison in line for you. Deep down, I think Wes knows this too, and was just waiting for it to happen. Even if you completely take that incident out of the equation, you still have pretty credible allegations against him from pretty much every woman he'd ever been with. Simply put, those things eventually come back to bite you in one way or another. And if it wasn't prison time, it would be spending the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, waiting for the day that the consequences of his actions would come. Honestly, with his continued belligerence after the incident, more and more it seems like if Wes didn't go to prison, he'll just eventually walk into someone who's on the same wavelength as he is and either end up killing someone or most likely dying. I know it may sound like I'm stretching here, but realistically, this kind of thing does happen in the real world. And the reason why prison exists is to prevent it by putting these kinds of people away. Unfortunately, that may be the best, and at this point, only outcome for Wes Watson. As for me, I've been Turkey Tom. Thanks for watching, and until next time, leave me alone.
Just not that funny anymore.